All right, welcome into the Five Reasons YouTube channel here on a Thursday morning. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. Our producer today is Manny Chang. Thank you for joining us as we always do. Our sponsors, All Pro Construction Builders. Reach out to our guy Danny. We know that hurricane season, it's not just around the corner, it's legitimately here at this stage. Start hearing about these storms threatening us from the Atlantic and all other parts. Make sure you get the storm windows. Make sure you get the storm doors. Make sure you get them from a Miami Heat fan. Make sure you get them from somebody who uses locally made, American-made products. Make sure you use them from somebody who has all kinds of great reviews as well. You can reach out to Danny and the team, 305-484-4429. That's 305-484-4429. Miami-Dade County, that's where they're, based, but they can service Monroe and even us poor peons up here in Broward as well. So reach out to them at All Pro Construction Builders. They're also a general contractor. They can do the additions and renovations for you as well. Also check out U-Brake Wheel Fix, our friend Mark and the team. You met him at our watch parties. Again, huge Miami Heat fans. It's kind of what we do around here. 305, well, also Dolphins and Canes fans too. We'll get to that later. 305-748-0112. 305-748-0112. Complete wheel solution. They do everything for you at U-Brake Wheel Fix. They can fix those wheels that they get bent, curb rash, all kinds of different stuff down here in the terrible roads of South Florida. But also, you can just make them look nice. You can check that out on their Instagram as well. U-Brake Wheel Fix. They got the custom colors and everything else to do the refinishing, polishing, all that cool stuff. 305-748-0112, based in the Aventura area. All right, let's get to it. Before we get to this Jimmy Bam. Free Bam, free Dame. Jimmy Bam, Dame talk. Let's get to the news of yesterday, okay? We're going to kind of use these starting fives to update you. We did a five on the floor last night. Sean Rochester, myself, Alex Lito, we went through the possible sort of minimum and low budget options for the Heat should they get Dame, and they have to unload the roster for Dame. How will they fill it? So went through about 15 to 20 names on there, including, I think, 5 who used to play for the Heat at one time or another. So that's all there. That's going to be on the YouTube channel. I think it's there already, and it's already on the podcast feeds. But I want to get to the other news. So the first thing was the Kyle Lowry saga. It's not over, but one part of it is our friend Barry Jackson had, I guess, speculated, but it seemed like it was sourced maybe from some outside the team, as well as perhaps inside the team, that the Miami Heat might waive and stretch Kyle Lowry. I was told yesterday and reported it on Off the Floor, and then on Twitter, and then Barry reported it right after that they're not going to do that. So they're not going to waive and stretch Kyle Lowry. I don't know how strongly they considered it. Barry said they did. I heard they didn't, but it doesn't really matter. They're not going to do it. So that's not going to happen. So I think Heat fans were kind of freaked out about that because it meant that they were going to go really cheap, essentially not try to use Lowry to acquire something else, but essentially just try to get off of his contract and spread it out. That apparently is not going to occur. So you can wipe that one off. I mean, there may be other things for you to be furious about down the road, but that's not going to be it. The other thing that's come out is that Max Strus is going to get a bag. In fact, he's going to get a bunch of bags. And it's funny because when I talked to an agent, not Max's agent, but when I talked to an agent about Strus in like December, January, and he told me, he says he's going to get a Duncan-like contract. And I said, no, he's not. I said, it's not because I don't like Max. I mean, there are things that Max does that Duncan doesn't do. And obviously he's a great success story. He's a great guy. All the rest of these things, you want him to get paid, but it's like, you get a Duncan money after what just happened with Duncan? And they're like, well, maybe it's not going to come from the Heat. But he's going to get it from somebody. And then, he helped them get into the playoffs because, I mean, he saved them in the play-in, as he did in many games, actually, over the past couple of seasons. But then he wasn't real good in the playoffs, or at least during the finals, for sure. He had, 3 really rough games. One that was pretty good, got off to a really good start, made 4 threes at the beginning, and one that was better, but not enough. And so I was wondering, okay, $10 million a year, maybe. But it appears he's going to get 16 per year. And to which I say, congratulations. And I mean that sincerely. I mean, he deserves it and he should go get it. But we know in Miami's tax situation, they're not going to pay that. They're just not. And they made it pretty clear behind the scenes, and it kind of came off publicly, that Gabe was more of a priority for them. And this is even with Dame, another point guard, in the mix because it's just more of a premium position. And I think that if you look at Gabe and Max, they feel like it's easier to find another Max, and we'll see. They've got a bunch of guys in summer league. We did a summer league episode who could fill that kind of role. You're not going to strike gold every time like they did with Duncan and Max, and they absolutely did. Okay, if you undrafted guys, you got one guy who's all-time leader in three-point shooting for the team, and the other guy who started in 2 Eastern Conference Finals and the finals. You struck gold. Okay, you're not going to do it every time, so we can't guarantee these summer league guys are going to become what Max and Duncan were, but they've got a list of guys who fit the profile who could emerge as that. I don't really see the Vincent in their system right now. Bouye, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem like they've done as good a job developing point guards traditionally. So it looks to me like what we said, and I think we've been on target with this, and most people have, that their priority is to try to keep Gabe if they can, and they're essentially going to, send Max off with a lot of congratulations and a gift bag. I don't see how they can match that. And, it's not just Indiana either, or that's the report from Stein, which would be the $16 million a year. It's also Cleveland's trying to get in on the mid-level. If he drops to there, I don't even know that the Heat would pay the mid-level. Maybe, but again, with their tax situation where it is, keep watching that Carnival stock. It's doubled in the last 3 months. So it's still 1/3 of what it used to be, but it's better. I don't see Max coming back. So I think that's where we're at with that. I'm going to some of the comments here. I know Manny's going to try to put some of them up, but I can read some of them too. And then we'll get to this stuff about Dame and all the rest of this. Here we go. Why are we still doing a Dame episode? Did we clearly know Portland's committed to Dame? Do we believe it will be traded? I mean, until the situation resolves, we're going to do Dame episodes because I don't think anything's changed. Like, if you've been following our content, OKC met with the Blazers and essentially said, I'm going to give you a little bit more time to try to upgrade this roster. Do we see an upgrade coming? I mean, does anybody believe that Draymond's really going to sign with Portland? Is that the solution? I mean, it's kind of amusing to me because, look, I'm a big Draymond fan as a player, but to me, a lot of what Draymond does is very specific to that Golden State system. I think overpaying Draymond somewhere else in a place that's not set up like Golden State, like maybe here it would work, but I don't know that that's necessarily the answer to make Dame a potential contender in the West. I don't see it. I mean, perhaps he does. There'll be a lot of podcasting done. I don't traded one podcaster for another and CJ McCollum. I don't see that being the solution or the fix. And I don't think Draymond's, again, don't aggregate this. I don't know this for sure. I'm not plugged into the Golden State situation like I am in Miami, but I don't see Draymond leaving Golden State ultimately. I think he's just trying to feel wanted. So what else are we talking about? Toronto, Siakam, Anunoby. I mean, Masai hasn't really given any indication he's going to blow that thing up. I need Ethan Bomb too. Well, something actually has to happen. That's the way that this works. So I don't. I'm following some of the comments. Either the second plan to go after Zach LaVine, or we're sitting ducks. I'll get to all that. All right. So basically, though, I don't think anything has changed on the Dame thing. Like I reported a couple days ago that he's trying to do the right thing by the Blazers. Okay. If he leaves, he doesn't want to be perceived as a villain. I don't understand, at least outside of Portland, why he would have that perception. Because I said this before, I cannot find a national media person, and now Tim Legler has been added to the Free Dame movement. I can't find a national media person, whether it's Jason McIntyre, the big lead, or Richard, former players like Richard Jefferson or Zach Lowe, or I cannot find, thank you for the money, Free Dame. I see it's expensive, Dame, here, $10. We appreciate the donation. I'll buy coffee. Actually, I don't drink coffee. I'll buy Coca-Cola. But I can't find anybody who has a problem with Dame leaving, right? And even in Portland, like they almost seem kind of resigned to it. Like I don't think they're angry at him. Like I just in the same way, and I know it was a little different because it was more contractual, but the Heat fans weren't really angry at Dwayne. They blamed the organization in that case for not paying him or appreciating him and all the rest of it. But I don't think anybody's blaming Dame if he wants to leave. I think everybody understands the situation. He gave them time. He gave them all the best years of his career. And they haven't been able to build a contender around him. And then the one guy who was his sort of best friend in the backcourt, they traded that guy. And that's the guy he got to the Western Conference Finals with the best team that they've had. So I don't think anybody blames Dame. And I don't think anybody ultimately blamed KG when KG finally said, okay, trade me. And then he went to Boston. Nobody even remembered he played in Minnesota by then. I mean, all anybody remembers now is, yeah, he was a different kind of player. He was a better player in Minnesota, but they remember the championship in 2008. I mean, trust me, the Celtics won't let us forget it. This comes in from Dean Miller. Portland doesn't own their first-round pick. Sees it as top 10 protected. It's in Portland's best interest to move on for Dame. Exactly. Now, I'm glad you mentioned that because it's not just that nobody will blame Dame. Nobody will blame Portland. All anybody's blaming either side for right now is being so damn indecisive and playing this stupid passive-aggressive game. Like, Portland needs to move on from Dame. They're not going to win in Dame's window here. It's different with Jimmy, okay? I mean, the Heat are set up to win all the time. They're always set up to contend, okay? And Bam is there and all the rest of it. Trust me, Portland wants Bam, right? It's amazing how Blazers fans want Bam more than the Heat fans do, okay? But, like, there's no issue with the Blazers moving on from Dame because they should move on from Dame. They have Anthony Simons, okay, a nice young guard who signed very similar contract to Hero, which is one of the reasons they don't really want Hero, okay? Shaedon Sharpe, who they took a flyer on last year, a lot of people thought that was a risky pick, and he looks terrific. He looks like one of the best upside guys of that draft. So they hit on a guy there. They hit on Simons for sure, even though, again, you can argue with those contracts. He's one of those like Tyler and Poole, et cetera, where those contracts are overpriced with a new CBA. I'll get to Kyrie in a second. Nobody's blaming them from going with that young core. And if you trade Dame, you're going to add to the young core, even if it's, first round picks that you won't be able to process for a year or 2 or 3 years. You're adding them to your system. And it matters in the West for this reason, because there's really 2 tracks. There's the teams that are competing to win now, of which Denver is the top. And I think Memphis is there once Ja's back. Golden State is there because of what they're spending and Curry's age, right? The Lakers are there because maybe they don't deserve to be there, but they did get to the conference finals and because of Bron and AD. So there's that track. But then there's the other track, which is Utah, OKC, and to a certain degree, depending on what they do with Zion, New Orleans, where those teams are loaded up. They own like all the first-round picks for the next 5 years. So you have one track or the other track. Portland needs to pick a track. Like, okay, you're not going to compete, I don't think. If Golden State keeps Draymond, you're not competing with Golden State. You're not competing with Memphis once Ja gets back, okay? You're not competing with Denver for sure, right? And we don't know where the Clippers are, but provided they bring Paul George back and Kawhi is healthy, then they land in that mix. Now, you're not a top 5 team. If you add one guy to Dame right now, you're not. Puncher's chance to get out of the play-in. So, to me, they should pick the other track because their young players are a little bit more developed, I think, than maybe even OKC. Well, maybe not SGA, but some of OKCs. Although OKC's creating what's going to be a monster in a couple of seasons. Again, New Orleans is a little bit in flux. And Utah, again, I like some of what they've done. And they took John Collins into the cap space and all that. And Danny Ainge can build the team, no matter what people think of Danny. He does know how to build a team. But I think Portland could go right in there with the mix if they add 2 or 3 first-round picks. And they already have Sharpe, and they already have Simons, and they already have Scoot. So they can basically have their backcourt. I mean, they can literally use those first-round picks to trade for front court players as they become available, or draft them and develop them. So nobody is blaming Portland for moving on from Dame, and nobody's blaming Dame from leaving Portland. It's just nobody wants to be the bad guy. So I know this wasn't the plan of the episode, but I want to answer that question. Why are we still talking about it? Because nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. He had a meeting with them, and he didn't say, trade me now. That's how that happened. Does anybody believe, based on Dame's history, that he was going to go in and say, trade me now? And one other thing, and then I'll get to the actual point of the episode here in the last 3 minutes. One other thing about this, okay, is everybody keeps saying, well, they're waiting, and they're going to screw themselves, and it's just like Durant. I said the same thing last summer, and I want to say it again. Have you looked at the free agent list? Okay. And also, have you listened to our episode with Brian Goins about the salary cap and the tax implications? Who exactly are the Heat going to miss out on over the next week if they wait out Dame? Who's the player? I mean, anybody people are talking to me about are trades, like Levine comes up. Okay, yeah, sure. If Chicago wants to trade Levine and they're desperate to trade Levine, they just signed Vucevic to the extension. If they do that and the Heat are just, oh no, we're waiting on Dame. That's one thing. I don't get the sense they're desperate to trade. They're listening on Levine. They're not shopping Levine. I don't think there's any guarantee Levine's going to be traded in the next week. So who are we talking about? Who are these free agents? Who can the Heat sign? Did anybody listen to the episode? In the episode, we clearly say they can't sign anybody except minimums. That's it. And they've got all kinds of other problems, which is like somebody in the Heat said to me yesterday, it's an interesting thought. It's not an excuse, but they're like, we thought we'd be in a little better position because we thought Depot might be healthy. Because then that contract, him opting into it, might have actually had some value as a player beyond just as an expiring. Okay, so they've got some things that have worked against them. But either way, they don't, unless they knew they were going to be a tax team. Okay, and I was told that again yesterday. They know they're going to be a tax team. They knew they were going to be a tax team. But then the new CBA came in, and they don't want to really be a second apron team indefinitely, not just, again, for the financial implications to the Arisons, which, again, everybody can have their own opinion on that, okay? But they also don't want to be a tax team because of all the vehicles that this new CBA takes away starting next year if you're in the second apron. So you don't have access to certain exceptions. You can't sign buyout guys. And I know Heat fans but that's a big way these are ways that the Heat have built their teams. And so they are trying to be cautious here, but at the same time, going after Dame is worth the cost. And that's why we did the episode yesterday and said, okay, if they get Dame, who can they add? Is there a Josh Richardson who slips to the minimum? We saw a Taurean Prince, okay, who wasn't tendered yesterday by Minnesota. Like, are there options there that they could add to a roster to fill out a roster with Dame? That's one thing, but those guys are still going to be there in a week. Most of those guys are not going to be snapped up in the first 3 days of free agency. Okay. These are guys that you add as free agency goes on. So who are they missing out on? That's the other thing I don't understand. All right. We got 2 minutes left. So I'm not going to get to the point of this episode, but I wanted to get to all this. Running it back is not the plan. Going after Dame is the plan. Running it back may be the fallback thing that happens that people are pissed off about, which will be understandable. But they're not even going to run it back with everybody because Strus is not going to be there. Okay. Tira says this feels like KD and Giannis all over again. It's very different from the Giannis situation. I'll just say that. The Giannis situation, there were players available for them to go get that they didn't go get because they were trying to make sure the cap space was clear in the same way they did leading up to 2010 for Dwayne and Chris, for Chris and LeBron. They didn't sign some players they could have. Lamar Odom's the only one they got close to before 2010 because they wanted to keep the cap space open. They did the same thing for Giannis. And then when Bam signed his extension early and Giannis stayed in Milwaukee, it blew up in their faces. And there were players along the way they could have signed that they didn't. That was really not the case with the KD Mitchell situation last year. Look it up and see which free agent you think the Heat would have signed if they hadn't waited out KD. Okay, you'll be looking a long time. There was nobody. The number one free agent to change hands was Jalen Brunson. He was always going to New York because of his father's situation there. And the next highest paid free agent that went somewhere else was PJ Tucker. And I'm not having that conversation again. Yes, my glasses are foggy. We didn't even get to the point of the episode. Should we do that tomorrow? Your guys' comments got me going, which actually I appreciate that. I don't like coming in with anything scripted. All right. Thank you, Ben. There you go. See? I'll clean them up. That's what happens when I just wake up. All right, check out the other episodes here. We'll do this one. I don't know. Manny, you want to do it tomorrow? We'll do it Monday. Manny's going to say no to me. I saw the comments. Last one. Fins for life. Do we have any cap space for signing a free agent, Ethan? Damian aside for a moment. Brook Lopez would be a great addition. They do not. I recommend you listen to the episode we did with Brian Goins because I specifically mentioned Brook Lopez on there. It's here on the channel. And, I mean, unless he wants to take the minimum or something close to it, They just don't have the resources. They don't. That part is not about, everybody's going to argue with me. Some of this is about not wanting to spend a certain amount, but some of it is just about not having the vehicles to do it. And I think if you see a free agent world where Max Strus, God love him, is going to get $16 million a year, you getting Brook Lopez for $3 million? As you know, it's just where we're at. Free Dame, free us. We'll try to do the actual topic tomorrow. Thanks.